The passage of time doesn't always heal all wounds, but it often offers clarity. And for Kailyn Lowry, the clarity she gained after years of co-parenting struggles with ex-husband Javi Mariquin finally led to one of the most difficult but necessary conversations of her life. As the mother of 5, podcast host, and former Teen Mom 2 star stood once more face to face with Javi, the man she once loved, married, and divorced, it wasn't about rekindling old feelings. It was about facing the ever-complicated reality of parenting a child who has grown up in the spotlight of reality television and familial tension. This was about Lincoln, their son, their shared pride and joy, their greatest challenge and their strongest bond. And on that day, they weren't there as exes with history. They were just two parents who had to put everything else aside to figure out what was best for their 11-year-old son. Rewind the story so far to understand the weight of that reunion. It's important to understand where Kailyn and Javi started and how far they've come. Kailyn Lowry and Javi Mariquin were once one of MTV's most watched couples. Their whirlwind romance, turbulent marriage, and eventual split played out across millions of screens. After marrying in 2012, they welcomed Lincoln in 2013. But the cracks in their relationship soon began to show. By 2016, they had finalized their divorce, and a long and often emotionally charged co-parenting journey began. While they always prioritized Lincoln publicly, behind the scenes there were miscommunications, flare-ups of past resentments, and accusations that sometimes made the headlines as much as their co-parenting wins. Through it all, they both made attempts to be there for Lincoln. But what made this latest reunion so significant was that it wasn't prompted by cameras or court orders. It was sparked by a conversation that needed to happen, one Kailyn had been avoiding for too long. Facing change, the custody conversation. When Kailyn realized that something had shifted in Lincoln's emotional world, she couldn't ignore it anymore. Lincoln had always been a bright, active, expressive child, a soccer enthusiast, a loyal brother to his siblings, and someone deeply bonded with both of his parents. But recently, he'd started withdrawing. There were subtle changes, quiet dinners, late-night thoughts expressed in half-finished sentences, and questions that were too mature for his age. "Why do I have to go back and forth so much?" Kailyn admitted later that that question had haunted her. It forced her to look at the custody arrangement not from a legal or logistical standpoint, but from the eyes of a child stuck in a ping-pong rhythm of two homes, different rules, and the undercurrent of unspoken tensions. And so she made the call. It was awkward at first. She hadn't spoken to Javi in person, privately and at length, for months. Their recent interactions had been short, functional, and distant. But she asked him to meet, just the two of them, to talk about Lincoln. Not to argue, not to bring up the past, just to talk. The reunion, real and raw when they sat across from each other, Kailyn felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. Javi, too, seemed unsure of what to expect. They'd had met in so many different contexts, first as friends, then lovers, then husband and wife, then adversaries in a divorce court. This was a different context altogether. She started the conversation slowly. "Lincoln's been struggling," she said. "I think we need to rethink how we're doing this." Javi didn't immediately respond. His expression was unreadable, but Kailyn pressed on. "I'm not saying I want to take him away from you. That's not what this is. I don't know if the 50-50 is working for him anymore." It was the kind of moment that could have gone in any direction. It could have sparked a fight, but to Javi's credit, he didn't lash out. Instead, he asked, "What do you mean?" Kailyn laid it all out. Lincoln's moods, his questions, the emotional toll of the back and forth. She acknowledged that they both loved their son fiercely. But sometimes love wasn't about equality. It was about balance. And balance looked different for a child than it did for the adults fighting to be fair. And then came the hardest sentence for her to say. "There's no winning here, Javi." one of us is going to feel like we're losing time. But if it means Lincoln feels more secure, more grounded, then maybe it's worth it. The child at the center for Javi, hearing that was painful. He adored Lincoln. His relationship with his son had been his rock through every romantic failure and career shift. The idea of seeing Lincoln less crushed him. But he saw the truth in Kailyn's words, because he'd noticed it too. The restlessness in Lincoln's tone when he said goodbye, the increasing need to adjust to a new household every few days, the exhaustion of a young boy who just wanted things to feel normal. So Javi asked the question that showed his maturity, his love, and his willingness to do the hard thing. What do you think is best? Kailyn didn't propose anything drastic. She didn't want to remove Javi from Lincoln's life. She proposed more stability during the school year, keeping Lincoln in one house during the weekdays, allowing him to settle into routines, and increasing Javi's time on weekends, school breaks, and over the summer. It was still shared parenting, just restructured. It wasn't easy for either of them to agree. There were tears, there was hesitation, but ultimately there was unity. Moving forward, together, but apart. In the days that followed, they took steps to make the new arrangement work. They spoke to Lincoln together, assuring him that this change wasn't because one parent loved him more. It wasn't a punishment or a power play. It was simply what they believed would help him feel most at peace. Lincoln, in his own quiet way, seemed to understand. Kailyn later reflected on that moment in a podcast episode, noting how different it felt to be on the same page with Javi, not as partners, but as co-parents with the same mission. I think for the first time in a long time, we actually listened to each other without trying to win, she said. Because there's no winning in this, only doing what's right. Public eyes, private lives, being public figures meant this story didn't stay private for long. As news broke of their custody changes, the media spun their own narratives. Some speculated on tension, others praised their maturity. Kailyn, true to her nature, stayed open about it, but only to a point. I've lived my life on camera. I've made mistakes on camera, but this is about my son. Not ratings, not headlines, just him. Her fans responded with overwhelming support. Many parents related to the impossible tightrope walk of custody arrangements. Others applauded her and Javi's ability to put aside personal feelings. Still, there were critics. Some believed the changes were unfair, others questioned their motives. But Kailyn didn't let that noise penetrate the truth she knew. Lessons in letting go in the weeks that followed the custody change. Something began to shift. Lincoln seemed lighter. His moods improved. He smiled more. He started opening up again. And while Javi missed the weekday routines, he admitted that the quality of their time had improved. We're not rushing through the mornings anymore. Now when I see him, it's about us, not just homework and bedtime. Kailyn, too, noticed the calm in her home and in herself. Sometimes parenting means letting go of what you want, she said, and trusting that your child's needs matter more than your pride. A shared love that endures. The story of Kailyn and Javi will always be layered, filled with love, conflict, reconciliation, and growth. But perhaps the most powerful chapter they've written together is the one where they put their past aside for the sake of their son. It didn't make them perfect parents, but it made them present ones. And in a world that often tries to pit co-parents against each other, they chose, instead, to stand on the same side. For Lincoln, always for Lincoln. For over a decade, fans of the Teen Mom franchise have followed Kailyn Lowry's life with intense interest. From her rocky relationships and co-parenting struggles to her growing media presence and recent motherhood revelations, Lowry has remained one of the show's most prominent and controversial figures. But recently, the reality star has found herself in the eye of another media storm. According to swirling online rumors and tabloid speculation, Kailyn Lowry allegedly punched her fiancé in the face after discovering he had been unfaithful. The explosive claim has dominated social media threads and fan forums, leaving viewers questioning what's real, what's exaggerated, and what it says about Lowry's tumultuous personal life. But did it really happen? And if so, what led to this moment? In this article, we unpack the rumor from every angle: what sparked the accusations, what Kailyn has said and not said, how the media is handling the story, and what this means for the teen mom brand as a whole. As we dissect fact from fiction, we'll also explore how reality TV stars navigate public perception in an era where personal missteps, real or rumored, can dominate headlines overnight. Kailyn Lowry. A quick recap. Before diving into the controversy, it's worth revisiting who Kailyn Lowry is and how she came to be at the center of this latest scandal. Lowry first appeared on MTV's 16 and Pregnant in 2010, eventually becoming one of the stars of Teen Mom 2. Her journey has been defined by her openness about mental health, domestic struggles, and raising children with multiple partners. Over the years, she's published books, launched podcasts, and become an influential voice, albeit a divisive one, within the reality TV and mom blogging communities. But public opinion about Lowry has always been complicated. Supporters praise her transparency and entrepreneurial hustle, while critics often highlight her confrontational tendencies and history of interpersonal drama. That duality makes any story involving her, especially one as sensational as this, ripe for tabloid attention. The cheating allegation that lit the fuse. The latest incident allegedly stems from suspicions that Lowry's fiancé, whose name has been kept mostly under wraps in mainstream coverage, but known among fans, was cheating on her. Details vary depending on the source, but some reports suggest she discovered incriminating messages or was tipped off by a third party. The core allegation? After confronting him about his behavior, Lowry lost control and physically lashed out, allegedly punching him in the face. No police report has been made public, and no official statement from either party has confirmed the incident. Still, the rumor has caught fire. Social media, especially platforms like Reddit and TikTok, exploded with hot takes and speculation. Some fans called the story fake news, pointing out Lowry's recent efforts to stay out of drama. Others insisted it fits a pattern of volatile behavior, citing past incidents that involved physical or verbal altercations with exes.